Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me for the newest episode of Food for Thought. I know it has been a while, but I promise this episode is worth the wait. I'm incredibly excited to bring in Yarin Glam. She is an artist and a musician, and yeah, she's absolutely incredible. And a lot of her songs do talk about her own struggles with mental health and eating disorders. So, without further ado, let's welcome Yarin. Thank you so much, Yarin, for coming onto the podcast and letting me interview you and, sharing your story with everyone. Me,
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, first of all.
of course.
My name is Yarin. I'm 27. I live in LA. I've been making music for the past 10 years, I would say. I had a bunch of breaks in between, kind of like trying to figure out my artistry and just like different struggles holding me back from making music for a while.
Hmm.
And just like you know, what we all go through in life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sing a lot about mental health and empowerment. And yeah,
Thank you.
right.
If you could, tell us maybe a little about some of your newer songs and just any songs that really stick out to you, about maybe ones where you've talked about your ED struggles or other mental health struggles that you've gone through.
Absolutely. I just released my EP. It's called Human. Worked on that one for like a while. I think it
Hmm.
took 3 years to put it out. So it's kind of interesting to see because I was like 24 when I started it and now I'm 27. So I'm like you grow, you know.
Yeah.
My favorite song off that EP is probably Human and People Please. I think my first EP was the one where I was more openly talking about the ED, like songs like I have Free and Shut Up. And those were actually the first time I've ever like opened up in my music about like my eating disorder. So yeah, those are close to heart.
Thank you.
Of
Well, if you
course.
guys can, all viewers, definitely stream the newest EP. Human is incredible. I've been listening to it nonstop, so definitely go take a listen. It will definitely be worth your time. We're going to get a little bit deeper now into talking, about the ED stuff. Feel free to talk about as much as you feel comfortable with. Just maybe leave out extreme details or numbers because I just want to make sure that this is a safe space for everyone listening. And, you know, competitiveness is a huge thing within ED culture. So I just want to be respectful of everything and everyone's struggles and everything like that. So moving on from that, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your ED journey and, what the recovery process has been like for you.
Um, well, I've struggled with, that critical voice in our heads for like since I was like really young. I remember really starting to struggle with it when I was like 12, and it took me a while until I was actually able, like, allowed myself to reach out for help,
Mhm.
basically. I was in denial for a long time, and you know how our society likes to cover like behaviors that are not good for us as like being healthy or just like, yeah, everybody's doing it, right? So it's normal. Until I was like 21, I want to say, almost 22. It was when I was having really bad panic attacks because yeah, just wasn't a great time, and I was
Mhm.
really struggling, and that was like I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go to therapy for that, not for anything else," you know? And from there, my therapist pushed me to go see a nutritionist, and they changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get the help that you needed and, you're on your road to recovery and, your amazing artistry journey. It's incredible to witness and just learn about. So, thank you for sharing. In regards to your ED specifically and the way that it has affected maybe your performing or, your artistic journey, could you just touch a little bit more on that and how maybe your eating disorder impacted your inability or ability to perform or just, show up for your audience and everything like that.
Absolutely, well, it took a lot from my mental space.
Mhm.
When I was like really deep in it, I was not creative at all. I was just focused on, numbers, exercise, and all the great stuff that comes with, right, eating disorders. And yeah, it really took me away from the part of me that was like my passion, my everything. Music was always there for me ever since I can remember myself. And I think that was my biggest wake up call because I remember I remember one time I like took a walk and I was like, wow, like I'm so not myself and I'm so like far from the fun, creative person that I used to be
Yeah.
and passionate. I had like a lot of passion for life and music and it was like all taken away from me. And I was like, yeah, I should stop. I was like, but then you're like, but I'm so deep in it. I don't think I can ever like go back or like fix myself. Right. And then I was like, I started therapy and I was like, I'll start a new project talking about it because, you feel so isolated when you're deep in it and it's such a dark place and you feel like you're the only person that having those like thoughts and like I was like you feel crazy, and I was like, let me heal myself by writing about it while I'm in like my recovery journey. So I started with my EP Realness. And that was like the first time I was like talking about it and sharing my journey. And when I was in a writing session, writing free, I was like, okay, this is gonna be cringe, but I have to do it. I have to be very open and like just vulnerable. And
Mhm.
free was basically like I was sitting with my co-writer at the time and I was just like telling him how it felt. It just came to life. I was like, I just want to be free from those thoughts and all those like all that negativity that's in my head, and I wanted to let it go. So, yeah, that was a big healing process for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that you just talked about was mentioning that, oh, when you were writing your song Free, you were
Mhm.
scared of, pouring out your feelings because like it could sound cringy or something like that. Especially I feel like with, just the severity of eating disorder thoughts and behaviors sometimes. And I think it is very deeply personal. As a songwriter myself and a lot of viewers who are also musicians and, write songs. I was wondering, like, what finally was your push to be like, I'm just going to push past the cringiness? Like, this isn't cringy. This is what I'm feeling. And this is how I want to voice this to my listeners. What was that experience like? And how did you really just push yourself to get through it?
I think the big cringy feeling was like you said, like eating disorders could be very competitive, right? So I was always like telling myself, oh, like it's not bad enough for you to feel all these feelings. And I never talked about it with my family or friends. They talked to me about it, but I was like kind of always saying like, "You guys are crazy. I'm just, being healthy or whatever." But then I was like, I don't know. I felt like it was my calling in a way. I was like, I know so many people suffer from this, and I know um, that growing up, I wish I had someone to listen to that have gone through something similar to mine, and I wish someone was there to tell me that I'm not alone, and that it's not like it shouldn't be so taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just let me just do it for the people who are going through what I'm going through. So yeah.
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 For sure. And thank you for, being open because you are right. It shouldn't be a taboo thing to talk about. And unfortunately, it is. And like you said, a lot of people probably have underlying things or people who are struggling, like, oh, no, I'm just being healthy. And I think, there is a very fine line between being healthy and actually having an unhealthy relationship with food and having an eating disorder. So I love what you're doing with, sharing your story through your songs because I think it's very important for all listeners to pay attention to and listen to. You said that you've written a couple songs more deeply about your eating disorder thoughts, one being Free, and I believe what was the other one titled?
Shut up.
Shut Up.
Yeah.
Could you tell me just I know you talked about the writing process for Free, but what was the writing process for Shut Up, and what were things that were going through your mind that you really wanted to touch on? And also just, talk a little bit more about the song, maybe go into a couple lyrics. I'd love to just hear more about it.
Absolutely. I think Shut Up I actually wrote before I wrote Free. And I was actually a little bit more careful in a way when I made Shut Up because I also had my mom in the room with me. And I remember I was like, this is gonna be interesting because I wanna like open up, but it's also like I didn't wanna say stuff that like will either shock her or like, scare her in a way. So I was like, I was in the session with my producer, and I was like, do you ever feel like your head gets so loud with like negative thoughts and you just want to like shake yourself and tell it to shut up? And he was like, be more specific. And I was like, ah, I'm like, damn, how do I stay true to myself here, but not like say too much that my mom will be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I really wasn't fully open then. I have basically the whole story of Shut Up is like understanding that at the end of the day, I'm the only person that can help myself and get me out of the dark place. And like we give our head so much control over us and we think that it controls us. But, with hard work it can make it lower, not as loud basically. So it's basically talking about how long I've been stuck in that dark loop of like negative thinking and like talking badly to myself, having that inner bully, and realizing that I'm the only person who can help myself at the end of the day and shutting it out. That's just
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And if you can, I'd love for you to touch a little bit more on Free as well and about that writing process.
Absolutely. Yeah, Free was my most vulnerable. Like the first time I was really vulnerable, like fully. And I remember I was sitting outside with the guy that was writing the song with me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you everything. And I feel like once I talk about it, it's going to be so easy to write this song. And I was like, no one talks about like how blah, 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 how dark it is, how like we're on social media and we compare ourselves to this like fake reality or like highlight reels of people. And I was like, and no one talks about like how bad it feels basically to be so like in like shackles basically, like you
Mhm.
want to break free of that but you feel like you can't. And yeah, free was a very fast writing process. And I remember like I was just like writing everything I said. It was like, actually I feel like this we should call the song Free because you keep saying how much you want to be free of whatever
Yeah.
it is you're feeling. And I was like, yeah, I like that actually. And yeah, like the verses are basically talking like going in depth of like painting a picture of me being on my phone and comparing myself to others or just like being with that voice in your head, and wanting to break free of that.
I love it. I mean, I think Free is so perfect when it comes to describing like eating disorder behaviors and thoughts specifically because it makes you feel so trapped. I know that I've felt that feeling so many times where I've literally said out loud, "Oh, I just want to be free from these
Right.
thoughts. I don't want to deal with them anymore." So, I mean, I think it's perfect, and we also love a fast writing process too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a musician myself, so I know how long writing processes can be. That's one of the reasons why I've never went into writing my own music because it's always so daunting to me, but
Yeah.
I admire everyone who does.
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah. But also with the production, I remember I told my producer, I was like, I want it to sound like a fun song. 'Cause, like, a lot of people I remember I was like, sometimes when a new artist puts out a slow song, it's like a lot of people are just like, "Ah, whatever, skip." So I
mhm.
was like, I really want people to hear the lyrics. So I was like, let's wrap it into like this, oh, it's just like a fun song that you can jam to, but if they listen to the words, they're like, "Oh, there's a deeper meaning here." So yeah, I love Free. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think the juxtaposition between like having it being a fun song with like really deep and important lyrics is just so cool. And Yeah, I love it. Moving on, something that you did talk about that I did want to ask you about was surrounding social media. So, as we all know, social media is very toxic when it comes to comparisons, especially with people's bodies. I think, Facetune, Photoshop, all of these things that people use to make themselves look quote unquote better on
Right.
social media, creating insane false realities. I was wondering first, what has your experience been maybe growing up and, being on social media and seeing all these things and how that has contributed to eating disorder behaviors and, maybe the development of that?
I just, as a kid, I would like, I feel like society was, I mean, it still is, but it was so toxic in the way of like, I would watch like runway models and stuff, and like people would be like, that's what you should aim for, right? Strive for, because that's what's going to get you love and admiration and like validation. That's what you should, aim for. And I was like, oh, okay. So, looking a certain way equals being loved, basically, right? Or feeling like you're enough, or that's what's going to get you happy. Um, and I was like, okay. So I was going for it at like 12, right? And I was like, no matter the number on the scale, it would never make me happier, right? It would actually make me more depressed and deprived, right? But I feel like sometimes we just don't connect it because we're so brainwashed to think that if we look a certain way, we're going to feel a certain way. And it's like, if we don't heal our soul and our thoughts, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter the number on the scale, you're never gonna be happy and satisfied. And I was one of, I followed the trend. I remember like around 18, 19, I was probably at my smallest and I would Facetune my pictures to even look smaller,
Mhm.
and I would look so happy on my stories and like if you would see my page, you'd be like, "Oh, this girl has it together, she's happy, she's doing what she likes," but I was never more miserable. And I was like, "Damn, we look at other people and we're always like, "Oh, this person has it better, this person has it all figured out." And it's so far from the truth. And when, yeah, I started working on myself, I put a stop to all the, fake, like trying to look perfect and like editing and filtering everything. Cause I was like, I remember being the kid that watched all the stuff. And even still today, like I'll come across stuff and you see, it doesn't even have to be like appearance. It can be like someone having their life all figured out and they're just like happy all the time. And it's so not so far from the truth. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, one of the beauties of social media is that you are able to share your life. And then one of the tragedies of it is that the life that you're showing could be completely fake. And so I appreciate you, especially as someone who does have a relatively large platform and a good fan base who is, just being authentic with their fans. I think a lot more social media people and celebrities and artists and musicians need to keep doing that. So thank you to you for setting realistic standards and, letting people know that mental health, mental illness is a thing. People go through it, and that's okay. And it shouldn't be something to look down upon or be afraid of. It should be something that, you know that you have and you need to deal with it, and that's
Right.
perfectly okay. So, thank
Abs-
you. Now that you are pretty established, you have a decent career in artistry and everything. How has your use with social media like changed? How has that affected you and maybe some of your struggles with eating or
Hmm.
food or your body and things like that? I don't know. Have
Mhm.
Has there been any issues with that or just how has that experience been on or off social media too?
Hmm. I think it's so important to me to be real and transparent. I've spent so much time creating a fake reality, or like showed myself in a way that I thought I had to show myself. If it was with my music or just the way I would show up on social media, it was so far from who I was and the truth. Yeah, so now I even find myself today like taking, let's say I need to take a video to promote something, and I'll take it a million times because I'll be like, ah, this sucks or whatever. And I'll just be like, I mean, you need to tell her, like, you just need to be real, like just, yeah, just, I feel like just being real, transparent, and vulnerable, I think. Yeah, I hope that answered what you asked me in the right way.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Thank you. I think also just, interactions with any of your fans, I would hope that they wouldn't make any comments, but and
Mm,
you never know these days. I feel like people do make negative comments just because they think that they have the power to do
mm,
so.
right.
And in those experiences where maybe you have received some sort of hate comment or, just someone trolling on the internet, how have you been able to deal with that and make sure that doesn't take a toll
Mm.
too much on you?
Oh yeah, and I get a lot of hate comments and stuff, but it comes with it, and I just like I honestly laugh about it. I laugh with the friends and my sister. Like I'll screenshot stuff and I'll send it to them. We just crack up because I'm like, nobody that's truly happy with themselves sits behind a computer or a screen on their phone and just like trashes someone, Like, so you gotta just like find the humor. Or the funny thing, it's like a lot of the times, like stuff that you're insecure about, and you're like, no one's gonna notice you posted and someone noticed it, and you're like, shit, see, other people can notice it too. But
Yeah.
you just have to like laugh about it. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, I'm like, if I get hate, it means I'm doing something right. So I just look at it in that way and try to stay like, it's funny though, because like our brain, like we'll see thousands of positive comments, right? And we'll see that one hate and we can be like,
Mhm.
ouch. And we'll remember that. But I just try to like, yeah, just like brush it off and laugh about it as much as I can. So yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I
Yeah.
do the same thing. I've gotten a couple
Yeah.
of hate comments on some of my videos and stuff. I'm just like, I also screenshot it and send it to my friends. I'm like, this is so funny to me because it's like
Yeah.
you clearly have nothing better to do in your life. So I'm glad that, both of us are able to just kind of take it as it comes. But like you said, the reality of it is someone who is truly happy with their life wouldn't be doing that. They honestly probably just have nothing better to do in their lives than
Right.
want to feel important.
But it's also I'm 6 years into therapy, so I feel like I've become a stronger person.
Yeah.
If it would have happened before, I probably would be laughing less and more like, "What the hell?" But I'm just like, yeah, I think I have thicker skin now, so I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Something, kind of going into a little bit more into, the industry side. How has being in an industry where, at least from my perception and my experience, a lot of focus is on you, how you look, how you present yourself.
Mm,
How has that been? How has your experience been with that?
mm.
And have you received comments from other producers or other artists who, make comments about you? Or how do you also try to be your authentic self while simultaneously trying to make someone else happy, whether that be audience members, whether that be other people that you're working with or working for? Yeah, just how has that experience been for you?
Um, wasn't easy, I'll tell you that. I started when I was 17 years old, so I was very new to everything, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm living my dream, right? This producer believes in me and I get to be in the studio and this is just like the coolest thing ever and it's everything I've ever wanted." And at the same time, I was very in my head about like just like so self-critical, right? And just like I didn't have a good at all relationship with myself, the way I felt about myself, whether it was looks or honestly, most things I wasn't fan of my and you have this producer that tells you, "Okay, there's talent, but we gotta change a lot of stuff. We gotta change your look. We gotta get you in the gym. We gotta do this and that." And it feeds into that voice in your head of like, "See, I told you you have to look." different or like you're not good enough the way you are. And I was 17, dude. It was so weird for some guy to be like, okay, we're gonna get this guy and we need to change this about your body and this and that. And I was like, so weird, man.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't realize how weird it was. I was just like, okay, he wants the best from me. He wants me to succeed. And I just remember everyone around me just like felt that they have the right to make comments, whether it was about my face or my body or the way I was standing or presenting myself. It was constantly, okay, we got to change this, we got to change that. If you want to be this, if you're actually serious about this, look at these girls, they look a certain way and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is so messed up. And at the same time, I was like in the studio at 17, and I was like, okay, I want to talk about self love. And I remember they're like, you're too young for that. Let's write about a crush or something. And I was like, okay, I mean, they know better, so I should listen to that. And yeah, throughout the years, I would just constantly hear what I need to change about myself. And then when I was quote unquote too small, like there's always something. You're either too small, you're too big, you're not, like something has to be off, There's always going to be something that they tell you. Then when I was starting therapy and started my recovery journey, and had to be in front of the camera all the time to like, music videos and whatever it was probably one of the hardest things I had to do. You want to be better, right? But also there's that voice in your head that tells you like, don't do it. Like, don't like say goodbye to this. This is like the part of you that you need. And you look at videos and you're like, oh, shit, like this is so hard that I have to constantly look at myself and judge. And other people are judging and like, I'm like, I don't know how they'll take it because I look very different from what I did last time I did a music video. And you're like, there's so much stuff that go into it. And I'm just so grateful I had my nutritionist and my therapist there to like remind me why I've even started therapy, and like they constantly reminded me that my values and what I believe in is so different than what I've been brainwashed to believe, and I just had a good team around me to remind me that. So I'm very grateful for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm glad to hear that you did have a team of people behind you who
yeah.
were supporting of you, because I can't even imagine what that's like and the hardships that you've had to go through throughout your artistry career. And, probably still struggles now. And there are definitely struggles to come in the future. That's just the way that, the music life comes. But, you know, it's just is, I don't know. It's hard. Um, how did you going off of that point, how did you make sure that those comments from people weren't impacting your recovery journey in a negative way?
What do you mean? Like the things that people around me said to me?
Yeah, like if someone was saying, "Oh, I think you need to lose a little bit of weight before we do this shoot."
Mhm.
How would you take that comment and then not let yourself fall back into negative behaviors like restriction or, you know, severe lowering the amount of calories that you consume, excess exercise, things like that.
It was hard. It
Yeah.
was really hard, yeah, because yeah, again, people think they can just tell you whatever the fuck they want, And it wasn't even, like, just music people, It was people that I would know and didn't see for a while, and I would just be like, "What happened to you?" And I'll just be like, "So, actually," and, like, I would literally have to explain them, "You shouldn't say that to people, and the other version of myself that you saw was actually not healthy, and right now I'm actually better than I've ever been." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Damn, our society is so fucked up." And yeah, it was really hard, but yeah, the team I had around me just like they kept reminding me of like why I'm doing this, and like they were like, "Well, you can go back to all the stuff you did before, but did it ever help you? Did it get you to where you wanted to be?" Like, and they would always tell me, those people that tell you those stuff, would you how would they say it? Like, would you take advice from them? And I'll be like, no. They'll be like, okay, so why would you even listen to the stuff they tell you
Yeah.
about appearance or whatever? I'm like, yeah, but it's so shitty because it's like it like just feeds into what my brain constantly tells me. But I think them and the music and just like, yeah, not going against what I talk about in my music, what my whole brand is about was like a
Mhm.
big thing because I was like, that would be so hypocritical of me to like sing about I am the realness and then fucking, I don't know, restricting and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I can't be two different people, And I just kind of like would find little things that would keep me accountable or like remind me why I even gone to therapy in the first place. So yeah, wasn't easy, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally relate to that. I felt the exact same thing when I started this project and started this podcast. I was like, okay, sometimes it's going to be really hard for me to just not listen to the voice in my head that's telling me, go to the bathroom or don't eat this.
Oh,
And I remember my mom actually, she was like, Lisa, you know that it's really important for you to just, well, no, she didn't say she said, like, don't you want to make sure that you're being your authentic self online? And I said, yeah. And then she said, I just really hope that this helps you in your recovery journey in the sense that, you're doing this for yourself, but you're also doing this to be authentic with other people. Like when I post a TikTok and I say, anorexia is really bad, it's deadly, don't do, all of these things,
oh,
I have to make sure that I listen to myself too. So it's definitely a great reminder
oh,
for me, at least to, watch some of my videos back and be like, okay, you know what? What I'm saying is true. I know sometimes I don't believe that because of the ED brain, but Elisa believes that.
oh.
And I'm glad to know that, you've experienced that too, but you remain true to yourself and to your audience. And I think that that's very admirable. So
Thank you. I mean,
thank you.
we all have bad days,
Yeah.
and as long as we don't make it a pattern again, that's what like matters at the end of the day. Like we'll all have thoughts, even like come back, whatever. Life is always happening,
Mhm.
shit always happens. But I think finding your reasons is important, and it's hard to go to therapy when you don't like yourself and they tell you, "Oh, do it for yourself." And you're like, "Why the fuck would I do it for myself? I don't like her," you know?
Yeah.
So it's like finding other reasons because just like if someone is like, "Do it for yourself," like, just love yourself. Girl, that doesn't work like that, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like, it's not that easy. Trust me, if it
Well,
was that easy, I would have been recovered a long time ago.
yeah, there's more to it and finding your reasons to stay on the right track is really
Yeah. Well, this conversation has been absolutely incredible. And
important.
I know I say this every other sentence, but thank you for being a part of this podcast and letting me interview you and sharing your story. On my last question,
Yes.
I would just like to know what
Uh-huh.
advice you would give to people who, are young and are struggling with eating disorder behaviors and their body image.
Um, Damn, that's really hard.
It's okay, take your time.
Yeah, let me think about it. I'll say that I'm so sorry for having to live in a world that celebrates eating disorders. And that no matter what their head tells them, they're more than enough and more than capable. And at the end of the day, the number on the scale will never give us the satisfaction of recovery and getting to your healthiest self, whether it's the way you think and the way you live. There's so much more to life than making yourself smaller. Because it's not just the scale, we become smaller in every aspect in our life, and it's just not worth it. And they're capable of much more.
Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. And to that, I say, go stream Human, go stream Free, go stream Shut Up, and all of Yarin's other amazing songs.
Thank
You
you
won't
so
regret it. And yeah, thank you again.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. This has been great. I'm honored to be on your podcast,
Of
and thank you for everything
course.
you're doing. You're
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you again, Yarin, for agreeing to come on to this podcast and talking about your mental health struggles and just about your journey as a musician and artist in LA. Please like, follow, share, comment this podcast video, and follow on Instagram and TikTok at Green Room Recovery Project. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.